Well, I'll call the meeting to order and then turn it over to Secretary Paspa to go over um, the startup costs, the startup things that she does every time we meet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think that the people in the room can hear me, but people on the Zoom, if you can hear me, nod, please. Okay, then we're just going to continue. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome members of the public to this open meeting, but also request that our audience respect the meeting space of the Board of Trustees and remain in the audience section so that the university is able to efficiently conduct its business and ensure other members of the public can hear the proceedings. I'd now like to announce that pursuant to Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, the Open Public Meetings Act, public notice of this meeting was filed on June 26, 2024 with the Office of the Secretary of the State of New Jersey and 3 newspapers: the Cherry Hill Courier Post, the New Brunswick Home News Tribune, and the Newark Star Ledger. Public notice of the meeting was posted in the following university libraries: the Alexander Library, New Brunswick, the Dana Library in Newark, and the Robeson Library in Camden. Pursuant to Public Law 2020, Chapter 11, public notice of the meeting has been posted on the Rutgers website under governing boards. And I apologize for those on Zoom if I am shouting at you. I want to make sure that people in the room can hear me. I'd like to ask all members if they've seen the agenda and the meeting materials posted in the governing board portal. Does anyone have a conflict of interest to disclose at this time? Great. Seeing as there are none, we can continue, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to start with some personal remarks. Welcome back, everyone, for another exciting year, academic year. You can actually feel the excitement on our campuses if you walk around. It's just buzzing with activity. Students are back. Parking spaces are all gone. We have a lot to look forward to this year as a university and as a board. And I hope you share my enthusiasm and the enthusiasm of Amy Mansu, whose chair I'm sitting in at the moment, but only for the moment. This year will bring its own unique challenges. That's for sure. And opportunities. And President Holloway will highlight later in his report. And it's incumbent upon us as a board and a university to support each other and throughout the year as we rise to meet the moment. At today's meeting, you'll hear a number of items that will establish the board's work for the year. This will include the fiscal 25-year goals, as well as the task force on assessment report, from which your feedback inform the development of this year's goals and will influence the continuing education program throughout the year. Also, throughout the meeting, we'll receive important updates in critical areas of the university. So I would encourage everybody to participate and ask questions and make sure we all understand. I would like to announce that Amy Tower, who is the chair of the Board of Governors, is here with us today by invitation, and so she's sitting over there in the back. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Wendy Purcell, Vice Chair of Education and Professor, Department of Environmental and Occupational Health and Justice, Rutgers School of Public Health on Zoom, and the return of Robert Boykus, Professor in Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology, also on Zoom, and this year's representatives to the Board of Trustees, the Senate representatives. And I'd like also to welcome Mrs. Musaf Yusa, I think I pronounced that correctly, also on Zoom, and the return of Ms. Brielle Fedorko, also on Zoom. And they will serve as this year's student representatives for the Board of Trustees. As we enter this new year, we have the pleasure of introducing and inducting new and returning members of the Board of Trustees. So first, I'll call on the new and reappointed members and general counsel to approach the standing microphone. I guess that means at the podium. Yes, at the podium in the back. So Jonathan Bargishwal, Kim Case, Carol Tekla-Christ, Indu Liu, James McCarthy. And I would also ask Jason Red to approach the microphone. Oh, I'm sorry. Jason's online. Please, Jason, unmute your telephone or your microphone. And then I would invite Jonathan Hoffman to this, and he's already there to to administer the oath.
Only my mother calls me Jonathan.
Okay, son.
You all ready? I state your name.
I, Carol Christ,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the
The
Constitution
Constitution
of the United States
of the
of the
United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the
and the
Constitution
Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I
that
will
I
bear
will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in
and to the
and
government
the
of
governments established in
the United States and in this state,
the
the
United
United
States
States
and
and
the
this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the
to the
authority
authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I
and
will
will
faithfully,
faithfully,
impartially,
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 and justly perform
and justly perform
perform
all the duties of the office
all the
all the
duties
duties
of the office
of member of the Board of Trustees of Rutgers,
of member
member
of
of the Board of Trustees of Rutgers,
the State University of New Jersey,
the State
State
University,
University of New Jersey,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the
according to
best
the
of my,
best of my ability.
So help me God.
so help me
So help
God.
me God.
I would like now to call on President Holloway for his remarks.
Thank you, Ken. I did not know of your relationship to John Hoffman in the parental form. But I can see the resemblances and certainly the quality of character. As you all know, this morning I informed the Rutgers community, as I'd done last month to Board of Governors Chair Amy Towers, that this, the 5th year of my presidency, will be my final year as president of Rutgers. It has been a tremendous honor to work with you and with the Board of Governors, and I've always appreciated and admired your dedication to Rutgers and to our students. As I noted in my announcement, there is tremendous momentum at the university. Enrollment is rebounding after the pandemic years. And I'll speak to our first year class in a moment. Our rankings have risen across the university in recognition of our excellence and commitment to social mobility. Our research productivity is strong and supporting economic growth. New capital projects are underway in Camden, New Brunswick, and Newark that will be transformational. Rutgers Health is strong, and we've begun the merger process for the Rutgers School of Medicine. We built vital relationships with our partners in government and our donors who have responded with significant investments in the institution. And we are showing the nation the value of a culture of service and citizen engagement. It has and will continue to be a privilege to serve as president. I'm excited to do that work that we have ahead of us in the coming year. Some more specifics. In enrollment, our first year of student enrollment is up university-wide by a healthy margin. 11,650 new first-year students across our campuses this month, more than 1,000 higher than last year. Over 25% of our first-year students are either out-of-state or international students. This is important for all manner of reasons. Rutgers Newark has seen a significant increase in first-year students. I believe it's now to pre-pandemic levels or right close to that. Housing across our campus is at 97% capacity and over 99% capacity in New Brunswick. And this is one of the strongest classes in the university's history, and that's a testament to the strength of our reputation in the state, outside of the state, and across the globe. This is an interesting moment, of course, for me to be addressing all of you on this day in particular, but I want to reassure you that work proceeds according to plan. The Newark Chancellor search is getting underway with a committee co-chaired by Executive Vice President Prabhas Mogi and Professor Salamisha Tillett. I will be charging that committee tomorrow, as a matter of fact. I'm pleased to say that Trustee David Harris has agreed to serve as a member of the search committee. This month, the committee is holding listening sessions to gain the Newark community's input on the experience, values, and vision they hope to see in the next chancellor. And in the meantime, Jeffrey Robinson is serving as interim chancellor and doing, I must say, a fabulous job. We live in a complicated time, of course, and one of the major complications, political battles, is over free expression, free speech, academic freedom. And as I've shared with you already, we have a new central website on free expression and a new set of guidelines for free expression. We created this website following a review of university policies for expressive activities at Rutgers and deciding that while our policies as a university are stronger, there was more we could do to educate our community on its rights and responsibilities in exercising freedom of speech and academic freedom. And I want to emphasize its rights and responsibilities. We need both to be respected. It's important to know that we have not changed any policies. Indeed, our policy on academic freedom, for example, was adopted in 1966 and has been barely changed since. We will continue to advocate for free speech at Rutgers, but also protect the right of students to attend classes, have their learning uninterrupted, and conduct university business in peace. On the federal front, we continue to respond to the government on federal and state levels, including answering questions about the U.S. House, questions from the U.S. House Committee on Education and Workforce. I gave my testimony, as you know, in May, but document requests and delivery has been continuing unabated since then. As the election cycle continues, higher education is likely to remain a focus for political discourse. It is my fervent wish the political discourse is healthy, is respectful, and is honest. I like to dream. I also want to bring up to speed on athletics. As you know, I've commissioned an external investigation into our gymnastics program to ensure that we are doing things right and with the well-being of our students in the forefront. I am confident of our internal processes when things were brought to our attention over the last academic year and really the spring and into the summer. But I think it's critical that we have outside representation to make sure that this confidence is not misplaced. It might be a learning opportunity for us. Hopefully, is to affirm that we've been doing things in the proper way. Regardless, it will be something that is important to be done. And I expect it'll be, if all goes to plan, we should have some update by the end of October. Don't hold me to it, that's the hope. But we will be hopeful. Of course, we will be searching for a new athletic director. You'll be hearing more about that soon enough. In the meantime, Ryan Passari is acting as interim AD and stepped up immediately when I called him on the day of Pat Hobbs's sudden resignation. Those who know Ryan already hold him in the highest regard. I've spent a lot of time with him in the last few weeks. I already thought well of him, but now I understand why people feel the way they do. I have great confidence in the work that he has already been doing for that department. He has calmed things down tremendously, and I know he will steer our Big Ten athletics programs with integrity and purpose for the remainder of his term, however long it may last. It is my intention, working closely with Amy Towers, that the Newark Chancellor search will be completed ideally in February, that I'll have a role in naming of that person. and also working with the Board of Governors and also with representation from the Board of Trustees, the same thing with the Director of Athletics. Again, I know this is an unusual moment for us to be meeting just hours after I shared my news with the community. I want to take this moment, though, to really emphasize my appreciation for the care that all of you bring to this role at the university. I was new here 5 years ago and have learned a lot about this large, incredible, complicated, but uplifting institution. You already knew this as alumni and people who believe deeply in this institution for a variety of reasons. So in the spirit of a university always being a place of teaching and learning, thank you all for being my professors in my own discovery, my education of this institution. Thank you very much.
I know I speak for everybody in the room when I say thank you very much for those 5 years. It's been outstanding. I would now like to call on Chancellor Tillis to report for his report on Rutgers University Camden.
Great. Good afternoon, Chairman Johnson, President Holloway, and members of the Board of Trustees. It is always a pleasure to welcome you all to Rutgers University, the face of our amazing university in South Jersey. As I continue to engage on behalf of Rutgers Camden, one thing remains abundantly clear, and in my discipline, which is literary studies, it resonates as a leitmotif, and that is the impressive powerhouse that Rutgers Camden is as it continues to elevate the brand of Rutgers University in South Jersey and the Delaware Valley. As the face of Rutgers in Camden, we're dedicated to transforming students' lives through a high-touch academic experience that will help ease you threw me off there, Patrick. I was on a roll. Thank you. Thank you. Student lives through a high-touch academic experience that will help each student thrive as a learner and as a civically engaged citizen, all within the context of a world-class Rutgers experience. Our student demographics is largely first-generation, Pell eligible, first-time college students who may need a little bit more guidance. As a result, we prioritize student success by focusing on the needs of those who face the greatest barriers to higher education, providing them with the resources and opportunities they need not only to graduate, but to succeed in life. Our faculty committed to delivering top-tier teaching in addition to research and experiential and civic learning opportunities for students and for our staff. Many of them claim our students as theirs as well. Rutgers Camden is an anchor institution in South Jersey and the Delaware Valley dedicated to the communities within our reach. A few of our distinctions include eligible minorities serving institution and Asian American and Native American Pacific Island serving institution. We are a Purple Heart institution recognizing our commitment to active duty service persons and military veterans. We are Carnegie R2 classified, attesting to the high research productivity that happens on our campus. And we're the recent recipient of the Richard Gorosky Award for Institutional Transformation, nationally recognizing our sustained commitment to civic and community engagement. We were very excited to welcome the new class of Scarlet Raptors, and it was wonderful to see them and to go meet with them and their families through the shedding of tears, the shedding of laughters as they moved in. On that note, to give you a little bit update on enrollment, for fall 2024, our total enrollment decreased by 144 students or 1.9% compared to fall of 2023. Undergraduate enrollment fell slightly by 57 students, which accounts for a 1.4% drop, with a decline in 65 first-time in college FTIC students, making a 10% decrease. However, transfer student enrollment had a significant increase, reflecting success in elevating our collaborative premier partnerships with county colleges. Graduate student enrollment also saw a slight decrease of 57 students, roughly 3%. These changes highlight the need to examine factors affecting our FTIC and graduate student numbers while capitalizing on the positive trends in transfer student enrollment. We will continue to do a deep dive into the causes of the decreases in enrollment, placing particularly emphasis on the Common App and market trends related to South Jersey and the Delaware Valley. Regarding sponsored research, as a Carnegie R2 research institution, we are committed to increasing research at Rutgers Camden. In terms of sponsored research and awards, there has been a significant increase in the total value of awards by 3.4 million from 2023 to 2024. And that amount continues to increase in 2025 with to date a 4.6 million in research funding. In 2022, I introduced and began launching my 15 and 5 strategic initiatives, which were to elevate Rutgers Camden in terms of additional support to faculty, staff, and students. The intent was to launch all 15 over a 5-year period. I am pleased to announce that all 15 have formally been launched within 3.5 years. As a reminder, some of these initiatives include Summer Mayoral Internship Program for students, Learning Abroad Scholarship, Staff Development Grants, Faculty Research Grants for lecturers, Distinguished Visitors Scholars Grants as well. In your packets, you have a listing of all 15 for your pleasure and a host of others. Thus, I am pleased to report that so far, these initiatives amount to $3,391,138 in funding to faculty, staff, and students from the Chancellor's Strategic Initiative Fund. I look forward to continuing to support our students, faculty, and our staff in this academic year. Let's see here. Here we are. Connecting Rutgers Camden to the world and the world to Rutgers Camden is a pillar of our newly adopted strategic plan, which was presented to you last academic year. Preparing students for the global economy is a part of our mission. As I said earlier, most of our students are the first in their families to go to college. In some cases, they've never left New Jersey, let alone the United States. Rutgers University Camden has a deep history of international partnerships and engagement that precedes our long-standing engagement in South Africa, which will mark 27 years, March of 2025. Since the late 1970s into the 1980s, Rutgers Camden faculty and students have traversed the globe, forging countless global partnerships to enhance faculty research and the student experience. As of late, our attention has been on the continent of Africa, particularly South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Malawi. As seen on the screen, our engagement in these select African nations range from opportunities to advance research, increase undergraduate and graduate enrollment, to international experiential learning for our students. The Chronicle of Higher Education reported last year that in terms of the next generation of international students matriculating in US institutions, Ghana and Nigeria were the new China and India. Thus, we are working very closely with Rick Garfunkel and colleagues at Rutgers Global to maximize our efforts on the continent of Africa. This slide shows our engagement with university, government agencies, private industry, and other important collaborators in Africa. And as you can see on the slide, particularly, I guess, well, there's no pointer here, but just as an example, in Ghana, we are working with the University of Ghana in Accra. We're also working with we're working with the US Embassy as it relates to Fulbright opportunities for our faculty and for our students. Let's talk a little bit about continuing education and how that resonates here at Rutgers Camden. At Rutgers Camden, continuing education is synonymous to career elevation. To meet the demands of our constituencies, we offer 25 continuing education certificates in 4 areas, and they are business leadership and career development, education and humanities, law and government, government policy, and in nursing. These certificates will assist in providing excellent professional development opportunities and assist in career development. Our certification, and training programs offer the Rutgers quality consumers expect and the cutting edge insight and instruction needed as a high striving professional. To ensure access and flexibility, these professional development continuing education programs are available online to fit the business schedule of those interested in elevating their careers while maintaining full-time employment. Here's a list of continuing education certificates currently offered at Rutgers Camden within the 4 areas that I mentioned. And all of this information is in your packets. It just takes the pressure off of me, which is good. So I'm appreciative of that. Experiential learning at Rutgers Camden. In addition to continuing education, Rutgers University Camden provides diverse experiential opportunities for students, including internships, co-op programs, research projects, service learning, and study learning abroad experiences. One of the new and notable internship partnerships is with the Philadelphia 76ers, where paid internships will be able to grow their skills in various departments, engaging in marketing, social media, and in game day activities. Students engaged in experiential learning benefit from a range of hands-on experiences. This involvement not only provides practical skills, but also enhances career readiness. Additionally, students have the opportunity to network with industry professionals, further supporting their professional development and preparing them for future career success. Experiential learning, study abroad is yet another way. Let's see, next slide. There we are. Study learning abroad is another way Rutgers Camden students engage experientially. This slide offers a snapshot of current opportunities for students for 2024-25 in Patagonia, Western Europe, Central, South America, and Africa. Led by our esteemed faculty, students will intellectually engage topics ranging from biodiversity, natural history and conservation in Patagonia, and comparative criminal justice in the UK, to culture, politics, and health well-being in Ghana. To recognize and support our students and the wider community of varying faiths and religious beliefs, Rutgers Camden has an active interfaith council as a part of our Office of Social Justice and Belonging. Our interfaith and religious life initiatives aim to foster a supportive and inclusive spiritual environment at Rutgers Camden. The Interfaith Chaplain Advisory Council and Multi-Faith Community Affiliation create a network of faith leaders and faith-based communities dedicated to offering spiritual guidance and support to students and the broader campus community. The Interfaith Meditation Room, located on this level of the campus center, provides a sacred space for individuals and groups to engage in diverse spiritual practices. This room supports a variety of activities, including weekly rosary sessions, holy day prayers, various prayer times, weekly meditations, and Islamic salat offered 4 times a day, facilitating holistic approaches to spiritual and moral development. Almost there. At Rutgers Camden, we are committed to serving active duty and military veterans in our community. We offer specialized programs, counseling services, and career development opportunities designated to address the unique needs of veterans transitioning to academic and professional life and those serving in active duty. Our initiatives foster an inclusive environment that values the contributions of active duty and veteran students, faculty, and staff, while also promoting a supportive community that recognizes and honors their service. Rutgers Camden is New Jersey's first Purple Heart institution. We're also designated as a yellow ribbon school, and we also have multiple opportunities to celebrate our veterans and active duty students, faculty, and staff throughout the year. To circle back to the strategic plan, and just for the sake of remembrance, last year I updated you on the launching of our 5-year plan. As a reminder, the plan is built upon 5 core pillars of focus and action, and they include academic excellence, transformative student success, holistic student experience, beloved Camden community, and internationalism. To date, a few strategic plan accomplishments are seen on the screen, and they include procuring a $2 million National Institute of General Medicine Sciences grant, a $2.5 million Howard Hughes Medical Institute grant, as well as having our very, very first Truman Scholar in Rutgers Camden, and also we have a Newman Civics Fellow recipient, LaRaj Johnson Miller, and the list goes on and on. So we are committed to making sure that within the 5 pillars annually, we report back what we have done in order to elevate that. As I conclude, I want to talk a little bit about student success and what that means here at Rutgers Camden. At Rutgers Camden, we pride ourselves on the attention that we give to our students to foster their success. Our graduation rates include, let's see, here we are. Our graduation rates include strong student performance. We're roughly 47.9% of our students graduate within 4 years, as compared to 4.9% in New Jersey and a 45.3% national average. Additionally, 66.5% of our students graduate within 6 years, compared to 64.6% at the state level and 63.5% at the national level. According to internal Rutgers Camden data, 67% of our alumni are employed in New Jersey 6 months after graduation. Additionally, the U.S. College Scoreboard reports that Rutgers Camden graduates earn an average of $58,991 at the sixth month post their graduation date. These figures underscore the success and economic impact of our alumni. We've talked a little bit about ranking. Just want to remind you where we landed last year, that Rutgers Camden entered the elite top 100 universities in the nation, and also we entered the top 50 public universities in the nation. And I am waiting with bated breath for you to get information that will be, I think it's, the embargo is lifted next week, that we have risen in some of these categories as well. So I look forward to sharing that information on Rutgers Camden and what we've done relative to national rankings. Exciting things that are happening, just a couple of things in case you happen to be in South Jersey. In October, our Family and Friends Homecoming, which is Saturday, October 5th. Camden County Awards ceremony for our veterans is happening on the 16th. I'm starting a new tradition, an international student luncheon to get all of our international students together, and that's going to happen on the 24th. And then the chancellor's, my fall address and reception will be on Wednesday, October 30th. In the event that you are in town, we would love to welcome you at any of these events. Now, I think this is the best moment in time. It is my pleasure to introduce you to one of our esteemed students. I would like to ask that Ojobo Agboeji, a graduate student in our business school, he's going to come to share a little bit with you about his experience as a Scarlet Raptor graduate student. Ojobo.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Johnson, members of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor Tillis, and everyone assembled here. My name is Ojobo Agboeji, and I'm a first generation graduate student presently studying the Masters of Data Science program here at Rutgers University, Camden. I am in my second year, and I have a grade point average of 3.9. I am originally from Nigeria, and I'm privileged to have lived in 4 different parts of Nigeria. So to some extent, I have a level of experience being in different places. And so also had worked for over a decade in the fields of technology and business consulting, helping businesses make sense of their data to make informed decisions that improve their processes and profits. I decided to advance my career by pursuing a master's in data science with a focus on machine learning and artificial intelligence applications to healthcare. And so when I was thinking through the institutions I should apply to, a friend of mine recommended that I research about Rutgers Camden. Some of the things that he mentioned are, he talked about the sense of connection here at Rutgers Camden, the focus on research, and the strong community of international students. He also mentioned that Rutgers Camden's he also mentioned the commitment to international students, which is evident through the diversity of representation and support provided. And I was inspired to come here. And I must say of a truth, my experience so far has exceeded my expectations. During my first year here at Rutgers Camden, I was privileged to work at the graduate school as a graduate assistant, where I launched and hosted what's called the Recording Rutgers podcast and spotlights and profiles, where we highlight the progress, achievements, and experiences of graduate students, faculty, and alumni members. And I was also privileged to manage the social media pages across the different platforms. Last semester, I was a panelist at the Rutgers Business School Symposium on Artificial Intelligence. I also represented, if you could look at the picture there, that's me with Vice Chancellor Tom Rich. I think he's here somewhere. He's there behind. Yes, I was privileged to do part of the research poster during the annual Research Week Symposium, which was an excellent learning and experience opportunity. Over the summer, I was invited to Washington, D.C. by the World Bank as one of the 300 delegates in digital transformation. Also over the summer, I also worked as a community first fellow for the Center of Urban Research and Education here at Rutgers Camden, where I helped a community organization communicate their impact better and also improve their process using data collection and analysis. Over the summer, I was also awarded a 30,000 grant alongside my professor to research and develop a web platform leveraging GIS and data science to understand and visualize health realities here in the city of Camden, which I'm presently working on. This academic session, I was elected and will be serving on the Student Governing Association Board as an at-large representative for graduate students. I'll be graduating next year, May 2025. And I hope to leverage my experience, knowledge, and learnings in artificial intelligence and data science to work in industry, particularly in the fields that apply to machine learning and AI applications to solve real-world problems in healthcare and business. It is my sincere appreciation for the dedication and service that you all provide to our community. Your leadership plays a vital role in shaping the policies and future direction of Rutgers University Camden. As a student and as an aspiring scholar, I am deeply grateful for your efforts to improve our campus. Thank you for your time, thank you for your attention, and I look forward to supporting and contributing to the continued growth of our institution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajobo, and you are what Rutgers excellence looks like in Camden. Very proud of you. Thank you, Chair. This concludes my comment, and I am available for any questions if board members have them.
And I'll ask for questions in a moment. Obo, you need to keep future Rutgers trustee on your list of things that you want to accomplish. Thank you very much for that inspirational talk. Now, any Are there any questions for either Chancellor Tillis or Obo? We can take a few right now, and Mary has her hand up.
Yes, Mary.
Hi, Chancellor Tillis. I did have a question. I thank all that you do here. There's so many amazing education program, and if you've had any luck or are considering partnering with local corporate businesses to engage and further those investments.
Absolutely, Mary, and thank you so much for that question. Yes, the continuing education programs, they are vital to the community, and the partnerships that we have, that some of them are listed on the slide that's in your packet, those partnerships are essential to the success of continuing education. We're also trying to work with, for instance, work with Subaru, work with Campbell's in order to market these continuing education programs to their mid-level managers that may need some type of credential in order to advance to the next level. So I know that Dean Monica Adia, I think she's back there now in business, is also working with some of those. And I don't guess I need to put my glasses back on. I think I see Dean Nikitas back there as well in the nursing school, who's also doing that as it relates to forging that elevating the number of partners that we work with in the community. If it's your pleasure, I could definitely make sure that all of these leaders can get to you a list of current and some of the ones that they're working on.
I think it may be helpful for the entire board to see, just
Yes.
because many of us work in industry, both
Yes.
locally and nationally, and where we can support those initiatives.
Great.
It would be nice to know where they are.
Consider it done.
Yes,
Can you hear me? You need to use the microphone.
use the mic, please.
First, a comment and then a question. The comment, you spoke earlier about the lower enrollment this year, and you spoke to our first time using the Common App. I would also probably look into the delayed rollout of FAFSA. I'm sure that had a huge part in that lower enrollment. I think it just was disaster, but yeah.
Trustee Rivers, I could not, I have to agree with you. There are multiple factors, and fortunately, we've got a very adept enrollment management team that are really looking at it, peeling back the onion on all of the possible. Also, there were universities within our market that basically went to market before the federal government released. And so they were packaging and giving students, and because of the demographics, of course, that we represent, the excitement of getting that first letter from a university offering you money to come for first generation students, that's what typically wins the heart of not only the student, but also the parent. So it's pretty layered, but we will definitely look at all of those factors and see how they affected those enrollment numbers.
And then just a quick question, if you could. I know last year there was a lot of issues surrounding the Israeli and Palestinian situation. How has Rutgers Camden handled that? If you can just speak to that a little bit.
Of course, like Rutgers writ large, we too have had conversations with multiple student groups as it relates to lots of global happenings around the world. The tragedies that many families are facing that are affecting our students, irrespective of geographical locale. We were very fortunate in having Dr. Naima Watson, Senior Vice Chancellor Naima Watson and her team, who have worked with students, worked with faculty, worked with staff, and also community groups in order to forge conversations to help us to do what academic institutions are supposed to do, think critically through this, and then to find that learning that is always embedded in these world situations, and to then think about how to apply that to our daily lives. So we've done pretty well considering, but we're still in the midst of it.
Joyce.
Chancellor Tillis, thank you very much for your presentation and the information. You cite 67% of alumni working in New Jersey 6 months after graduation.
Correct.
Do you stop tracking at 6 months, or do you continue to track the other 23%? You also note that work in New Jersey, are there students going outside of the state working elsewhere.
Correct, and that's Dr. Jimmy Zhang, who is responsible for that level of tracking. That 67% was used by the scorecard in order to show that 67% of our students 6 months after graduation have jobs in the state and what those salaries pretty much were. Rutgers Camden students, I would venture to say, and I'll get this data for you, that over 90% of our students end up staying and working within the state of New Jersey. And so Jimmy, I'll have Jimmy Zhang, Mary, when I have all of that information, I'll have him also to give statistical data points about the percentage of our students. It's also, you will note that when the US News and World Report rankings are no longer embargoed, that we made a huge jump as it relates to social mobility. And a lot of that has to do with those data point factors that were reported.
Any other questions? Okay. Chancellor Tillis, thank you for that in-depth presentation. It's very, very informative, and I'm happy to hear that you're doing very well. Looking forward to next year. There was a member of the public who had signed up to speak on a specific agenda item and to be called upon to provide remarks. As is customary with the Board of Trustees, the speaker would be allotted 2 minutes for comment. And please limit the discussion to the agenda item that was signed up for, which, by the way, is item 11, the approval of the minutes. That person is Luke Spaltro. Luke, are you on Zoom at this point?
He's not on Zoom, Mr. Chair.
You're not there. Okay. Then we will move on. The budget report of the Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, Mike Gower.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this constitutes my now annual report to the Board of Trustees on the budget. The budget that is typically passed in early July by the Board of Governors each year, and this is the first opportunity to do that. But this is also an opportunity for me to brief you on what we refer to as the Financial Sustainability Project. The Financial Sustainability Project really is the fancy name for work that's gone on for about 3 years now, starting actually a little further back than that. As we were seeing the light of day from COVID, started to take a look at the university's projections and recognizing that we were going to be facing structural deficits coming out of COVID once the substantial and excellent funding from the federal government and from the federal government through the state government ended. The good news was during that time that happened, we were able to save money and put money away so that we would have an opportunity to have reserves to allow for a careful move back to financial balance, but one that nonetheless needed to be top of mind. So a lot of work went on internally with the president in conversations at the Finance and Facilities Committee, all resulting in the passage by the Board of Governors of a specific financial strategy policy, which I'll talk about in a moment. That is something that is unusual in higher education to put that kind of a direction in policy, and it's something that I think is very important for this university. Oops. Okay, so the choice of puzzle pieces here for the graphic is intentional. It illustrates the importance of a financial strategy to complete the puzzle of the priorities of the university, which are, of course, the excellence of our academic programs, the quality of our student experience, impact of our research and clinical care, but also our investment in our facilities and technology. These pieces have come together over the year and have resulted in the policy that I referred to before, but the proposition is very clear. Rutgers needs to work towards a financial sustainability position because we must do more than just ensure that the university survives. Beyond closing the structural deficit and keeping the doors open, we need to make decisions so that the university can thrive in the future. So this is a very telling graphic that reflects the extent of our structural deficit. You can see it on the top, but there's a lot of things underneath it. And that structural deficit really is just the tip of the iceberg. It's one facet of the many challenges that we face before getting to a financial sustainable position. As it suggests, the problem is deeper, it's more complex. It involves facilities, involves organizational matters, it involves evolving market expectations, many, many factors that are the headwinds, if you will, against us as we try to get ourselves in an appropriate position. But we aren't starting from zero in this case. There have been many, many efforts over the past several years that put us in a position to make this move, put us in a position to be in a financial sustainable position in the long run. You've heard some of them today, some increases in overall enrollment, rankings, clinical enterprise growing, research productivity growing, the reputation of the university growing. And it is an institution on the rise, and we can build from that. When we compare metrics of our own against peer institutions, in this case, we'll use a peer group that includes the other public members of the Big Ten. University lags in certain elements. This particular graphic on the left refers to our overall cash and investment position. And on the top right, that gap that you see there between the line and the bars represent the shortfall of what we invest in terms of IT network capacity every year. That shortfall, given that things such as the network or the circulatory system of the university is something to be concerned about. Likewise, on the bottom is the gap in deferred maintenance. And that's something that Tony can speak to very, very well as his organization tries to tackle this with what we have, but also documents the challenges over time. And you also see in the materials other metrics. Again, this is for your reference. I don't want to go into this. You have it in your materials. But it's important to take a look that in many, many cases where we should be in a better position to be these companion universities, that we are not. Recently, the university conducted an annual round of enterprise risk management surveys. These surveys for the first time took a broader view. In prior years have been focused on assessment by members of the president's cabinet. This year, we included the chancellor's cabinets as well, so as to get a broader, wider view of what are the things that are of concern to the leadership of the university. And amongst the chancellor's cabinets were most of the deans. And the top three risks are things that point directly to initiatives that we must be focused on during financial sustainability, the deterioration of our facilities, failure to develop new programs, and then being able to be resilient in the face of things such as cost increases or, God forbid, another medical issue. I include in the deterioration of facilities technology. And we have deferred maintenance in buildings, but we also have deferred maintenance in technology. And so I talk about those together, and I also talk about our need to invest in those together. For the business leadership team, which is a broad group of financial leaders from across the university, spent several years, 2 full years in discussion and planning with facilitation around what could we do to address this, identifying best practices in our industry and in other industries. So this is a really basic map of areas that we have identified that need attention. And they need more than attention. They need real plans. They need real projects. They need real initiatives. They need real results. None of them should be surprising. Program and service margins, growing and diversifying our revenue. What can we do with our assets that is better than what we're doing now? That's the balance sheet. Cost efficiency and optimization, but coupled with that, operational excellence. And we have further developed this model. We put those two together. We need to be more efficient, but we must be more effective at the same time. And that gets down to the 2 circles at the bottom. We must do things better. We must do things differently. So through a lot of help from the Finance and Facilities Committee and then subsequently the Board of Governors, in June, the Board of Governors adopted policy 40.1.4. It is a financial strategy embedded in university policy. And why is it there? Well, frankly, in conversation with the board leadership, board policies are the hardest things to change. And they also show that the board has expectations of the administration as going forward in developing a financial sustainability path. I will, did we send that around, the policy, to this whole group? I know we did in the orientation group, but we'll send it around just so that you can see it in reference. But it points out metrics, it points out distinct areas that we need to be working on. This is not something that we can solve through just cutting costs. In fact, cutting costs is going to be a smaller proportion of this. This is a revenue thing. This is where we need to grow our market share. We need to grow our effectiveness and grow our student body through a multitude of different venues and different modes. There's no one single thing that's going to do that. But we've also included in this strategy principles. There are certain things that are most important to us that guide these things. We have to take into account the common good. We have to take into account really focused on the mission. We have to take into account the students. Student success as our North Star. So these things can come together and are not, can work together towards a plan for financial sustainability. And then finally, specific financial targets that will get us to where we need. Now, I want to emphasize that if we set ourselves towards financial targets, we're talking about generating a bottom line, but the bottom line is for reinvestment. The bottom line could be a couple $100 million, needs to go into deferred maintenance, needs to go into IT, needs to go into program development, needs to go into refilling our reserves sometime. It needs to go into things that will keep the university whole and keep the university moving. If we do not address things such as our deferred maintenance, if we do not address our technology limitations, if we do not address the need to invest money for new programs going forward. I call that the R&D of the academic side. If we don't do that, it's at our peril. And I come back to the supposition to start with, that we must do more than survive. We must make the university thrive over time. We have a runway because of the money that we saved. We are in the third year of structural deficit budgets, which is not a comfortable place for me to be, but recognizing that we want to do this in an appropriate way, not as our colleagues in West Virginia had to do, which was in the matter of months. That said, there is not an unlimited runway to go on, and we need to be very attentive to this. So I'm glad to say that initiatives are underway. A lot of work during the summer amongst the president's cabinet and at the president's direction to get going, to work on a strategic enrollment plan, to work on cost efficiency opportunities, to work on net new revenue opportunities, to work on something such as what could artificial intelligence do to help us in these areas. And this is the picture of all the, we're not necessarily in the same boat. We have sometimes 5 boats we sail in, but they're going in the same direction. And that's the heartening part. Now, this is something that this project, because it is officially in policy, will have a regular report to the Finance and Facilities Committee and can be a regular, maybe not that often, regular report back to the full boards. There were other materials in here about the financial sustainability project, some draft implementation plans from last spring, there for your reference. Would love to get feedback, thoughts, suggestions, ideas. Please direct those my way. But now I want to skip forward a whole bunch and to do what I was really asked to do, and that was to give you an overview of the fiscal 25 budget. Just a long way up there. Okay. So this is important. We put this in the front of every budget presentation because we mean it. The budget reflects the values of the university in fulfilling its core priorities. We could do more if we had more. We do I always say, after working in higher education for, 42 years now, that this institution does more with less than any place I've ever seen. I would just like the opportunity to do more with more. That would be a good thing. But our $5.6 billion budget is a statement of our priorities and takes steps to preserve access and affordability. 77% of the budget is spent on our core missions: student instruction, research, public service, and healthcare. Only 15% is spent on administration, operations, and maintenance. So that includes all the buildings, that includes what it takes to run the place. 5% on auxiliary enterprises, those housing, dining, and parking, and then 3%, because everybody wants to know about athletics, 3% of their expense budget is in athletics, but between 2/3 and 3/4 of that is recovered through revenues that athletics picks up. To get a little deeper into these numbers, I provide you these information: classroom instruction, 33%, student services and scholarships, 11%, research, 12%, public service, extension, and healthcare, basically everything else into that 21% there. And then this is a breakdown again of the administrative and other. So what's pressing us? A lot has been pressing us. Negotiated salary increases, yes, those were negotiated and understood. What wasn't understood was the huge uptick of our fringe benefit costs. The vast majority of our fringe benefits are through state programs. And for somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 positions, depending on the time of year, we have to reimburse the state for those costs. That rate has gotten as high as 80% if you include FICA and Medicare, the composite rate. And it's been pressured by healthcare and the healthcare costs for the state employee benefit program, but also filling the pension hole that has been discussed in New Jersey for many, many years. We also have significantly more need-based student financial aid. Since COVID happened, we introduced the Scarlet Guarantee for New Brunswick. We've expanded Run to the Top in Newark, expanded Bridging the Gap in Camden, and I'll show you some information on that. It is money well spent. It is money needed, but it does have to come from somewhere. And then general inflationary pressures. I can tell you that the first year that we went back to what I call normal travel, conferences, whatever they might be, academic and non-academic, the budget that we had set up based on pre-COVID was finished, was spent by the end of April. That reflected the cost increases in airfare and hotels and everything. But those are the kinds of things we faced. We also, for a period of time, had a dramatic increase in utility costs. That has since abated, and Tony's group has done a marvelous job getting us futures contracts at much better pricing, but it did have its effect as we went along. So again, I leave this as for your reference. These are more detailed things that we call the expense drivers. But you see they're around our students, our people, financial aid, and capital. Those are the things that keep us going. And just to give you a little bit of a view of what the compensation change, especially with the fringe benefit, has been. In fiscal 22, it was about $3 billion. It's up to about 3.75 total now. It is dramatic. And this is for your reference. This is the budget itself in the format that is set up for us through the Higher Education Restructuring Act, so that we show each of the chancellor-led units in the central administration. But this is for your reference. On the revenue side, it also really shows and reflects the activities of the university. 27% from tuition and fees. State of New Jersey, about 21%. I dare say that healthcare and affiliate revenue from healthcare is going to pop above state of New Jersey in the next year or so. Sponsored research, about 15%, and everything else falls into that miscellaneous sources. That's a lot of things. That's everything that comes from housing, athletics, fundraising for operations, student aid that comes in revenue, endowment investment income, that all goes into that category. So where are the opportunities and the drivers? I look at this as the opportunities as we look at the financial sustainability. Can we advocate for additional state support, especially as it relates to providing access and affordability? As it relates to helping us with the dramatic increase in the fringe benefit costs. Enrollment, the common application had a big bump this year, and now we need to maintain that going forward. Of course, retention is always important there. Where are there pathways that we can build with county colleges? Where are there other opportunities to grow revenue without just raising the tuition rate? Optimizing grants and contracts. Research costs money. Research is a subsidized thing. You can be more efficient though. You can cover more faculty costs. You can get more facilities administrative recovery, which is the overhead. you can work on those things to be a more efficient research operation and save money. And then what can we do with housing, what dining, make sure that those numbers keep up, but also look for other opportunities to use those facilities at other times of the year when they're not being used for the normal. And this is for your reference, the details of the revenue budget itself. The fiscal 25 budget included a 4% increase in tuition and mandatory fees for most undergraduate and graduate programs. For a typical undergraduate arts and sciences student, and this is a consistent number across the three major schools of arts and sciences, that amounted to $274 per semester for tuition and $63 for mandatory fees. We worked really, really hard to keep that number down. And we did end up in a lower place than several of the other state institutions. We would like to keep it down further. And that's a matter of, how are we doing in enrollment and other factors. I mentioned financial aid as a key component of affordability, and the high priority of that is providing institutional financial aid and maximizing use of state and federal aid. About 75% of Rutgers undergraduates receive some form of financial aid. And I'm not talking about student loans. I'm talking about real grant programs. It is a big, 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 big factor. And it's a big, 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 big number. But think about 75% is about 58,000 on average students who are packaged or receive grants of one form or another. The FAFSA challenge was a major challenge to us. We worked really, really hard to be ready as soon as the data were available to us. And it wasn't just data from the federal government, it was also data from the state government for their aid programs. But on a Thursday in late May, or Thursday in early May, we received all these data, and over the course of a weekend packaged 38,000 award letters. That was a huge deal. It was certainly months after it should have been, but we can thank the Department of Education for that. And I put it to a large team made up of people from the chancellor's offices and people from my office, the central financial aid and student accounting offices, who worked 24/7 for over about a week and a half to make sure that we could do those things. Now, what can we do if we actually get the data on time? That's this year's goal. And to give you a perspective of these programs, really Bridging the Gap was the first one out of the gate years ago to be a last dollar financial aid for students. That was quickly complemented by Run to the Top in Newark, and then most recently the Scarlet Guarantee. These complement Garden State Guarantee in third and fourth year, where we have the opportunity to have the state pay for that aid program. But show you here the tiers that we have, so that adjusted gross incomes as high as $100,000 have an out-of-pocket cost of no more than $5,000 for tuition and fees. Now, it doesn't include housing and room and board and that kind of thing, but it is a big deal. And it has made a huge difference from an access perspective across the entire university. So again, this is a reference for you. I am more than happy to take any questions now or later. But I want to stop with this. We have we strive to provide an affordable, high-quality education for students and achieve academic and research excellence, and that financial sustainability is a strategic imperative and not just the best path forward, the only path forward so that the university can thrive. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Before we do that, let me just say thank you so much for this detailed analysis and report. And to some degree motivational, because it says we have work to do and it's worth doing. So thank you very, very much. Now, any
Oh.
questions from?
And I'd be remiss, especially standing in the city of Camden, not to point out the huge contribution of Bill Tambusi as a member of the Board of Governors and Chair of the Finance and Facilities Committee to guide this along. Also, Bill Best as the former Chair of the Board of Governors to get this to a point where it is part of the fabric now. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
So questions for Mr. Gower? All the way down.
I'm interested in your thinking about revenue generation strategies. I realize you have working groups that are, working on this right now, but how do you see the balance between additional revenue that you can generate from tuition and enrollment strategies versus other revenue generation strategies? And if you could talk a little bit about in that second bucket, what you see as the most productive of them.
Yeah, so that could be quite a number of things. So I put the academic or the educational pieces in the overall, what I call the enrollment bucket. And that means not just keeping the baseline enrollment steady or growing, but adding programs that would be attractive or modifying programs to make them more attractive or more relevant for students to participate. But then there are other areas where we can look at, certainly looking for more opportunities in fundraising to support student aid, for instance. That would be directly impactful for our operating budget. Instead of our dollar, we have an endowed dollar or a gift dollar. Use that. Intellectual property sale, use of our housing facilities during the summer, more intentional use of the summer, in the academic plan that might also lead to being able to have people pay us to use the dormitories in the summer. Could be, this is where we're going to look for creativity. There's so many different things that this university does. I point back to that miscellaneous sources. You'd be really curious to see the whole list of things that Ag Extension does, that a research enterprise does. We sell services to pharma in terms of running or taking care of mice. There's a lot of different opportunities there. And that work group is going to have a very large canvas to work on. Certainly.
I see that Norm Edelman has his hand up on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for a really interesting presentation, very insightful. Rutgers is an old university and we have lots and lots of programs. There must be some programs that have served us well, but are no longer relevant to the times or just have run their course. And I haven't heard you talk about examining all of our programs to see which ones should be downsized or phased out. They can't all be relevant.
You're absolutely right. And that is a critical piece. When I talk about a strategic enrollment plan, it also includes the review of existing programs, not just the development of new ones. One key part of that is to gather the data that are needed to see what is the efficacy of individual programs. We have hundreds across the university. So between my office and Dr. Mogies, the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs, we are working on both cataloging those and then working on data sourcing that would provide information to deans and to chancellors in terms of at least the financial position of each program or each major. It is by no means expected that every program runs a profit. That is absolutely not the case. Return on investment, as I started to say back in 2013 when I got here, is not strictly financial, but you cannot ignore a financial. And there are things that we refer to as the common good, which are programs that are absolutely necessary to have to be a university of this size and stature, and that need investment, that need to be subsidized. Well, let's identify those, let's put those in the right place. But if you're going to subsidize them, something has to run a profit to pay for those. So program review is critical to provide the financial information so that that piece can be part of the qualitative review that the chancellors, the deans would do, is one of the first priorities that is out of my shop and Dr. Mogi's, for instance. So spot on piece of our big piece of work.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mike, the graphic certainly shows that tuition is the biggest revenue driver by a substantial margin. And obviously, we all know that out-of-state and foreign students pay more than in-state students. I was pleased to hear a number that I thought I heard, that this incoming class was at 25% foreign and out-of-state. Two questions from that. One, is there a goal going forward as to what we'd like that number to be? And number two, is there, and sort of the given, I think, is that the pie only has a certain number of slices, and the more you give to out-of-state and foreign students, the fewer slices there are for in-state students. As to philosophically, is there sort of a divide as to where we want to end up?
As far as the goal is concerned, and I have to kick this one to the president because he has spoken about this at other times.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike, and thanks for the question. We are the State University of New Jersey, and so our first priority is to serve the residents of New Jersey. In order to serve the residents of New Jersey, we need to be financially sound, and this is Mike's presentation, of course. The different variables are tuition, as you mentioned, state support, medical services. Those are our three biggest sources of revenue. We work very hard every year to increase, of course, medical services, work very hard on the budget. But as you know, we are living in a world where universities, not just in New Jersey, get criticized for the high rate of tuition. And yet there has been declining in real dollars investment from states, significant drops over decades. So we don't really have many options. And so one of the options that I put in front of enrollment management team is to move towards a target over the course of 3 years. This is the first year. The first year class is the first year. A target of being 65 in-state, 25% out-of-state domestic, 10% and 10% international. I was doing the math, I had the numbers right. But so we made tremendous progress in 1 year, and I'm fully confident that in the course of the next 2 years, we'll be at what I think is the healthy mix from, and it's not just revenue, it actually is good, I think, for the cultures on campus, for the discovery process and education on campus as well, to have a more of a hybrid mix of people and where they're coming from and their experiences.
And we have lots of seats for New Jersey students.
You had a question.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much again for your detailed presentation. And Mike, you mentioned you came in 2013. I noticed those curly blonde hair are going now that I look at you. Anyway. Mike, this ties into Norman's question very briefly. But you mentioned that one of the three significant risks the university faces is our failure to implement new programs. And you also mentioned one of the challenges that we have is to try to optimize our assets in a better fashion. I realize we're going to be looking at that, but Mike, is there a schedule? Is there an accountability at the end of the day that there is a point at which we've got to basically do something when it comes to reduction or elimination of those programs that, although very fine and they have constituencies, but really need to be addressed in a reduced fashion?
I would think so. But I also recognize that those are choices and that need to happen between the chancellors and the deans, much more so in terms of pulling together the academic offerings. But just from the standpoint of looking at the targets that we've set and the timeline that the Board of Governors gave us, we have to make progress over the next several years. And we also have to make progress because those savings accounts are going to dwindle. So there's the reality of not putting ourselves in a position such as West Virginia did, where it had to happen really fast and not well planned. So we have, as I said, we have runway, and this is top of mind of the chancellors for sure. And then my job is to provide them what they need from the non-academic side.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, indeed.
Let's go online. Richard Schindel has his hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I think I recall seeing that the state, and by the way, this subject was touched upon, I think, by the prior questioner, but I'm looking at the percentage that we get from the state of New Jersey, and I think it was 21%. I'm a little rusty on where we have been in the last couple of years, but I know that over the last decade, it has been a constant decrease from the state. And I'd like to know if you could give us a little historical perspective on that, on this question, and how, and if you could, if it's possible, give us a bit of information on how this compares to state support of other Big Ten universities, state universities. Thank you very much.
Certainly. So of that 21%, at least half of it represents the imputed value of fringe benefits that are paid for or are absorbed in the state budget. There's 11,565 positions for which the state absorbs the cost of the fringe benefit. When I referred to the rate before and the cost to us, that there's 7,000 or 8,000 positions, depending on the time of year, that we have to reimburse them for. Last year, that was $330 million, that reimbursement. So assume that half of that you saw is the value of those fringe benefits. And that's real. That's real. It's not something to sneeze at. But the balance is what we actually have to pay bills. And that's around 10%. And that has been flat or varied just a little for forever. I am 11 years here on the 30th. The baseline appropriation is 3.5% below where it was when I started, and that included the combined appropriation from UMD and J that came to us. I know 3.5% because that was the one year that Governor Christie cut the operating budgets by 3.5%. And then it's been flat since then. There have been some additions for financial aid. There's been additions for objective-based programs that have come to us, not nearly enough to keep up with inflation. We got some money in the last 2 years to help us with the cost of the labor settlements. Yes, indeed, but not 100 cents on the dollar. So we are grateful for every dollar but it doesn't keep up with inflation. Let me just put it in those terms. How to compare that to other institutions or other state institutions? It varies a lot because everybody does it a little bit differently. Some states provide capital funds. We don't get those except once in a blue moon. But we are also in a state where a lot of money goes into direct financial aid for the student that then comes to be revenue for us. So like I used to live in North Carolina. You can't match up us against University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, because they are low cost, low aid, and we're higher cost, high aid. So it just it isn't that even to do. That said, we're probably in the middle. If you normalize things across the Big Ten publics. But we have been flat for a long time.
So in respect for Mike's time, the length of time he's been speaking with us, I'd like to maybe just hold this to 2 more questions. And the first of those will be Jean.
Thank you. My major question was what Bob Friedman asked, which is about international out of state, and you got a plan for that. I want to commend you also, and I'm glad you've been here for all this time for working hard because you're really handling the fund as well. One of the things that I heard, which is probably one of the main things that the university is now working on, is having the scholarship money taken control of by the financial aid office so you can match those with the most need with the scholarships they qualify for. Could you update us on that?
Well, it is. Between the central financial aid and the chancellor-led unit financial aids, they're the ones on the ground with the need-based aid. We package it, and then the professional judgment that's needed at the local level fills in that. So it is, as you saw, we actually have standards, for what the last dollars are going to be coming in. And that has made a big difference, especially introducing the program anew in New Brunswick, that had existed in Newark and Camden for many years. And I think the chancellors can speak to the impact that being able to do these programs have. I also should say, especially with this group, the importance of the Scarlet Promise grants and what happened from this team before and then during President Holloway's time here. Those are vital dollars. Those are, when I say that these programs are last dollar in, those are really last dollar in. They fill gaps, they fill needs, they fill places where the student needs so much to just get done or so much to continue and not drop out. They're vital, vital, vital. And so anything I can say or do to encourage that fundraising for those to continue is I will put it on the table. So we do a lot in financial aid here, given the resources that we have available to us. And as I said before, we do more with less, but I'd like to do more with more.
Okay, for the last question, I'll call on Ron Wilson online.
Hey, Mike, how you
Ron.
doing? Hey, the best bit of news I heard today, and it's really the best bit of news in a long time for financial folks, is that 25% number. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I think before the Christie administration, because we were penalized, I thought the number was only about 5% for out of state. I'm not sure if that's correct. But when we did the budget this year, we had a number for out of state and out of country of X. I think this number is higher than that. How do you dimensionalize that in dollars? That delta?
Give me about 2 weeks. And the reason
Okay.
I say that is that it's about 2 weeks before we take the official snapshot. You may think, okay, we're so many weeks into the semester and everything's settled down. Well, no. The add drop is just finishing, and it matters that everybody settles in so that we can do the revenue projections. I had somebody from finance and facilities asked me that same question. I said, okay, soon. But it will be better. And I just can't say for you right now how much. But you're right, there was a time, it predated me. It was back when Nancy Winterbauer was the VP for budget here. She was when I came in. She taught me a lot. But she noted the time that during a period of time, every time we got an out-of-state student, our appropriation would be decreased as a disincentive for it. So go figure. Fortunately, we're not in that boat.
Mike, thank you so much for
Thank you,
for
Mr. Chair.
this meeting with us and the detail that that you've gone into with us today. Thanks very much. So it's that time in this meeting at this time of year is to talk about the board's goals for this coming year. And I wanted to introduce that by saying we did have, and we're going to talk about it next after I just review the goals with you. Great result from our assessment team, putting together some detailed and thoughtful comments in addition to responding to the questions that helped us drive these goals. And the leadership team has met several times in depth on the subject of what kinds of goals do we want for our board in the next year and maybe even the year after that. We've been struggling with how do we put numbers to these things. And so we're going to maybe take a little bit different approach for this coming year. So the first part of that is some of the goals, some of the things that we've worked on in the past couple of years and have come up again in the in the assessment team results tell us that what we should do is ask more or amend the charge essentially for the leadership functions of the leadership teams to include things that we all have agreed we're going to do. So like the annual retreat, that will be a given in the charge for the leadership team and the executive committee. Holding meet and greets for new board members, that will be a given. Regional meetings with Board of Trustees, executive committee members, and a continuing education opportunity within and outside of the Board of Trustee meetings. So that handles a lot of what we've been talking about for the past year. And we just embed that into our operating procedures and make sure that we actually do that stuff, all of it. So now there are still some goals that we all want to say, this is my contribution. This is how we want to behave as team members. First one of those is fulfill our 10-year commitment to the Board of Trustees, for the Board of Trustees to participate in the Scarlet Promise grants. We're in year 5, by the way, with 100% Board of Trustees participation. That's number one. And number two is to embrace our role as ambassadors of Rutgers and Rutgers excellence. And number three, and there are only three, number three is to define the culture of the Board of Trustees that celebrates our commitment to the university through stewardship and engagement, contributing therefore to the fabric of the university. We tried last year to identify very, very specific things because we were wondering just how active are we as a board in the life of the university. We found that we're extremely active. Maybe you shouldn't have been surprised, but it still was a little bit surprising to see just how much the trustees were contributing to the university in time and talent. So those are the three goals that the executive committee and leadership team recommend for this coming year for all of us, in addition to the ones that I went through that say we're just going to take for granted we're going to do those things. Okay, so doing these things in reverse order, we now hear the results of the assessment survey. Now that I've told you what the board did with those. And so I'd like to call on Squire Servants to lead us through, and I think Squire's on Zoom.
I'm online.
Okay, to take us through that.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I think they stole the punchline here a little bit from the results, but we really had a great year last year, and the results really showed it. We purposely tried to keep the questions as consistent as possible over the last 3 years so that we could measure appropriately. And overall, the results continue to show a positive trend in the right direction, all different dimensions. I won't go through in detail the results. They're in the pre-read in the materials, but I will touch on a few points there that probably led to some of the goals for this year. We kind of broke it down into probably 5 different areas: strategic initiatives, continuing education, engagement, board satisfaction and service, and the goals assessment. And from a strategic initiatives perspective, we really focused on do we have the appropriate mix of board members from across the board? And I think overwhelmingly we did, but we do want to always continue to keep an eye on the ball and make sure we have diverse perspective, diverse locales across the state, and continuing to continue to identify really great talent to join the Board of Trustees here. From a continuing education perspective, everyone really strongly agreed on the educational programs being invaluable and critical to trustee efficacy. And majority of the trustees and emeriti attended at least 4 of these training sessions last year, and we have a number of proposals for continuing education programs for the remainder of for the start of this upcoming year. You can see those different proposals in the report. Engagement continued to be highly engaged last year. Between past Chair Crosta's updates throughout between the meetings, and the continuing engagement from that perspective, and the constant feedback from the administration. People were really the trustees were really happy about the engagement that we have from the university, and they felt like there was some sufficient opportunities to engage with university administration in different areas. Board satisfaction and service, great. Everyone really enjoyed their time on the board. And then the last thing I'll say is the goals and assessments. We did something a little bit different last year in the sense that we had a number of goals, a lot of goals last year that we were able to achieve on, but Alan read them out really consistently at every meeting and make sure that everyone is keeping track of where we were and pertains to achieving those goals throughout the year. So that was found to be very effective and very good for the board. And so I think from one of the areas, if you kind of looked at a lot of gleaned from the things that from probably all the questions and the feedback that we received, one of the areas was, 1, we should continue to do these continuing educations and do them effectively. 2, we probably could do some education around the difference. What is the role of a trustee? What does that compare to the administration, and understanding a little bit more of that dynamic? And so I think we'll probably have some discussions around that at some point this upcoming year. But overall, the report was great. I would be remiss without acknowledging the amazing team, the committee that helped put this together, this report together. Dina Elkins, Gene Fox, Walt McDonald, Terry Rodriguez, and Amy Mansu. So thank you so much for the committee and for all your help this past summer to come put this together.
Thanks very much, Squire. Let's talk about the minutes that were posted on the portal, the minutes of our meeting on June 20th, 2024. And I would like to call for a motion to approve those minutes as written.
So moved.
Okay. And second?
Second.
Okay. And yeah, yes.
I thought you were moving on.
No, so we will, all those in favor of approving as written, say aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. So now I'd like to talk about the proposed resolution, which was also in the package for trustee endowed funds expenditures for the year 2025. So these are monies that are earned by endowments that took place years ago, but have been identified as assignable, and so we assign them to support student unmet financial needs. That report is there's a resolution in the handout, and there is the summary of dollars spent for each of the categories for each of the chancellor-led units, also in the handouts. Before I ask for a motion to approve those as described, I want to just comment that those allocations are very consistent with previous years. We've been following the rules that we set for ourselves back in, I think, 2018 on how to spend that money. And we've been following that, and we can actually trend from that. It's higher this year. The support is higher and or it has increased. And so with that, I will ask for a motion to approve those expenditures as categorized. Thank you. Can I have a second? Is there any discussion about that? Go ahead.
What's our overall endowment at right now for the trustees?
I don't know, but I can take a really good guess.
Yeah.
We're spending just over $500,000. And if you think of an expense rate of 4% or so of the earnings, that's of the principal, that says that they're about $11 million.
Okay.
All in favor of accepting all of that, the resolution and all of the expenditures as defined therein? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? That motion carries. So now I'd like to call on for a report from the Committee on Diversity, Inclusion, and Outreach. Terry Rodriguez. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Members of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Outreach Committee reviewed the committee's charge, focused on the committee's role to provide guidance and advice to the Board of Trustees in relation to the board's diversity goals, and discussed the importance. There Pat goes again. And discuss the importance of outreach to the board's work. Members reviewed the nominating timeline to ensure that the committee is completing the appropriate steps to ensure the board has a pool of candidates that enables it to fulfill its needs. As we enter into the nominating cycle, you will all be hearing from a member of the committee to encourage potential nominees that align with the needs of the board. Members reviewed the composition of the Board of Trustees and discussed the board's needs as it relates to skills that the board will be losing as members term off, as well as goals to reflect the demographics of the state. The board continues to trail the state currently with regard to Asian and Hispanic or Latino members. The committee also determined that skills in healthcare will become more of a need as board members term off over the next few years, as well as needs in audit and cybersecurity. In addition to these demographics and skill needs, the board must ensure it is in compliance with the Act of 1956 when it elects members to the Board of Governors, specifically the requirement to elect members from Middlesex and Essex counties. The committee determined that board members should make an effort to recruit qualified candidates from Middlesex County to ensure the board has a strong candidate pool to choose from. The committee plans to perform outreach to groups that have members with these demographics and skills. And we ask that all trustees keep these needs in mind as you nominate candidates in the fall. The committee also discussed groups that have been contacted in the past and groups that should be contacted this year based on the skills and demographics highlighted above. And finally, the committee reviewed 2 tools that we are currently developing that members can use during outreach to groups. The first is a pamphlet that would serve as an introduction to groups and organizations. And the second is a video that would explain what it means to be a member of the Board of Trustees, thus making it easier for committee members to introduce themselves to organizations. Both tools are in the development phases, and the committee hopes to have them completed by the end of the year. This concludes the report of the Committee on Diversity, Inclusion, and Outreach. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Terry? Well, hearing none, Gary Trepufka has asked to make a comment at this point on the work of the JCOI.
Asked. I love that. That's great. No, I just wanted to give an update. We do have a meeting next week, but I did want to give a brief update just on performance and the long-term investment pool, especially in light of all of Mike's comments. But first off, just a thank you to some of the outgoing members, Amy Towers, Mary Papamarcu, and Mary DiMartino, and a big welcome to Jim McCarthy, Gary Taffet, and a welcome back by popular demand, Jose Piazza. As of June 30th, our long-term investment pool assets stood at 2.05 billion, which is our largest quarterly assets ever for the Rutgers endowment. So we should all be pleased with that. From a performance standpoint, although we've underperformed for the 3 and 5 year, the last year has been very, very positive, up about 12.4% relative to a benchmark of 10.5%. We kind of break down asset or performance into 2 buckets. One is kind of over and underweight on your asset allocation. The other is how well did our managers do. Given public equities were up about 24%, we're a little underweight to public equities, and so we lagged by about 50 basis points there. That being said, we had some very strong manager selection of about 2.4% of outperformance. So I think some people call it alpha, which is something that we've continued to focus on. And that really helped us substantially create the outperformance. So that's a little bit on assets, performance, attribution, which again, the takeaway was a very strong year. And just the last thing I would highlight is kind of what we did in 2024, and really 3 quick things. One is we fully indexed the endowment on the public equity side. There's one longer locked fund, but by and large, it is fully indexed, saving about $3 million. 2, we had some very strong outperformance against our target weighted benchmark, which is great. And then a continued focus on achieving our long-term asset allocation with private equity, given that we had a late start over the many years. So that concludes my report, Vice Chair Johnson, and thank you for the time.
Thanks very much for that. Any questions for Gary? Before we adjourn, I would like to ask President Holloway for any final remarks or closing remarks. I'm sorry. Yes. I have great help on both sides with make sure you do this. So I'll ask, is there any old business from any person, any member of the board? Hearing none, is there any new business? None of that. Is there any question that anybody has burning a hole in their head and just needs to ask? Okay, now President Holloway.
Just want to make sure to report to Amy Mansue that we followed the book. Exactly right. Thank you all again for your engagement with the university and all the different ways that have come across in this particular meeting. I know that there's a reception for a welcome event for new trustees and for everybody to gather around. My plan was to be there to spend time with everybody present to talk about all things, but especially to welcome the new members. You may have noticed I've had to get up a couple of times. I'm not going to be able to stay for that, just so you know. There's a family medical issue, stable, but came to my mind when Chancellor Tillis was talking. So I'm heading out right away, but please know that I'm with all of you. I know you're with me. I want to do a special shout out as my last word. This is what I call professional courtesy. President to Executive Chancellor Christ, thank you for, sorry, you're in the middle of drinking a glass of water. Thank you so much for coming home. And we look forward to your leadership and guidance during your tenure on the Board of Trustees. Thank you, everybody.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? And a second? No second. I'll second it. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Good job.
I don't know why we asked for a motion to adjourn. We finished the agenda. We're done.
Gotta close the meeting.
We just leave. Oh.
You gotta close the meeting. It helps under the Open Public Meetings Act.
We can hear you.